Okay, looking at practice 4.3, we're going to look at the last two principles of conditioning. So one of them is reversibility. So basically the nickname for reversibility principle is use it or lose it. I used to wrestle in high school, and over the kind of winter break in December, we would hold practices that were kind of voluntary, right? That the coach told us that after 3 to 5 days of not training, we could begin to lose some of our conditioning. And it may not be like a super, like diving off a cliff kind of losses, but really, once we get that recovery and adaptation, if we don't continually to apply those stresses, our body will then begin to adapt to the new demands or lack thereof placed on them. So our body wants to be efficient at what it does, and if we just sit around and do nothing, we don't need all that extra muscle mass, we don't need that extra lung volume to sustain the tissue at rest. So our body begins to remove that, right? So most athletes, right, aren't going to be sedentary, but that's where we have to think about the off season. What are we doing to kind of maintain a base fitness, right? Over time, right, hypokinetic diseases can occur. So what is hypokinetic? Hypo means low or below. Kinetic means human movement. So that means basically low human movement diseases. We think of diabetes, cardiorespiratory diseases, even obesity would be hypokinetic diseases. So really, the deconditioning will occur after about 2 weeks of inactivity. That's when it will be kind of more noticeable, right? We might see a slight reduction in our VO2 max, or maybe our top speed, or our 1 rep max. So a lot of times we think about aging, and we think of, right, maybe this first picture of this bent over elderly woman with a cane, right? Just looking at that, we don't really know her past or her history, but typically when we think about aging, when it becomes difficult to get out of a chair or to maintain our activities of daily living, most of those cases are that as an adult, that individual has been fairly inactive. They didn't really stress their body or their systems really beyond their day-to-day activities. And over time, right, then our body adapts to those lack of demands. But there is a group of elderly folks who are very active. People downhill skiing in their late 80s, right? My uncle, his goal when he turned 70 was to run a marathon every year during his the decade of his 70s, and he did. When he turned 80, he wanted to continue to run, but a more realistic goal for him was to do a half marathon every decade in his 80s. I believe he is 85 now, and he did run a half marathon at the age of 85. Now, it's probably not the same pace as when he was 40, but he's doing it, right? He is using it, right? So he is still maintaining some of his strength, his independence, his mobility. But for athletes, right, really after about 2 weeks, 14 days, we can see some detraining and some deconditioning occurring. So the last principle we'll look at is that individual response. So again, we're all different. We've looked at muscle length, muscle fiber type ratio, looked at somatotype. All those things play a factor into how our body responds and adapts to a stimulus. right? My wife was in CrossFit for a while, and she quit CrossFit because she felt she was getting too muscular, and she didn't like having that muscular physique. Right? I did CrossFit with her for a while, and we were, stressing our body similarly, and I didn't see the huge muscle mass gain. My wife is probably more of a mesomorph with longer muscles, and I'm more of the ectomorph with short type 1 muscles. So they don't respond the same way. Right? The years of training play a role into that. Right? Especially when we talk about technique. So that plays a factor into it, right? I said I wrestled. I didn't start wrestling until I was a freshman in high school. I didn't even know what a double leg takedown was, at that point. Whereas I was competing against teammates and opponents who have been wrestling since grade school. So they have more years of experience, a broader vocabulary of moves and movement patterns and situations. Other things that impact individual response, right, is the quality or the hours of sleep. That has a huge factor for recovery. Our nutrition, what are we putting into our body that to nourish, to fuel our body, to give it building blocks to repair after a stimulus. It's also that readiness. Part of that is the psychological readiness to do things, right? Someone might be a little more teachable, right? They may be able to progress more. Other people might be a little bit more, they might lack some confidence, or there might be a little bit more self-preservation. So they might not be quite as ready as someone who is willing to advance. Travel time can be a big factor. Also, like home stress. We're in the middle of a pandemic, right? That plays a role into how our body is able to physically perform. And certainly our academics, right? That being a full-time student and a student athlete has its demands, especially if we look at maybe during midterms or finals. Maybe we have some students who struggle with reading or math. They might need extra time to prep, and those things might weigh on them a little bit more. So all those things are factors we need to, as coaches, as people who are training athletes, we need to be aware of these individual responses and account for those differences. So in final, right, we're going to again think about how this applies to you as an individual, how you can use these things to instruct, to coach, to teach others, but also for your portfolio athlete. We want to apply the SAID principle, specific adaptations to impose demands, right? It's the progressive overload. We want to be smart. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but I teach this in my other classes with goals and goal setting. So we want to have a plan, a purpose. And to do that, we need it to be smart. So typically we do it has to be specific. What is the outcome we want? It needs to be measurable. We should be able to quantify and measure progress if we're moving. It should be action-based. So what are the steps we take? It should be realistic, but it also should be risky, right? We should have to invest something towards that goal. And it should be timely or time-bound. We need to see these progress markers at certain times. So usually with like athletics, right, we have maybe preseason games. We have maybe our conference competitions. And then we move into maybe some post-tournament. So, right, we want to see some markers during those kind of time intervals. Right, a workout should be fun. It should be interesting. It shouldn't be mundane. It should be challenging. There is reward in completing something, but if athletes dread coming to work out, they do the same thing day in, day out. Really, it's not rewarding. It's not challenging. It's not stimulating. And really, in order to improve, to get those specific adaptations to impose demands, we need to be adjusting, varying things every at least 4 weeks, if not every 4 to 8 weeks. So again, we need to be looking for and using these principles as we train our athletes.